The best example of leadership in this country is Mahatma Gandhi. Whenever he called for any action, he led by example and he was right there in the front. When he was in the front, people followed him. If you're in a corporate organization and you have your own room as a CEO, you have a separate toilet, it doesn't work. You have to go to the common toilet. You have to go to the common cafeteria. Be seen as one among the troops. You should have a culture of accepting dissent. High performers like the freedom. High performers like to push their ideas. They must not be afraid of expressing their views, however unpalatable it is for everybody else. People must love you, not respect you, not follow you, but genuinely love you. Follow you to the end of the world, and that comes when you demonstrate empathy, when you demonstrate emotion. Well, we learn that however good things that you achieve in life, there are times when there will be failures. You have to accept the failures with equanimity and bear with it and analyze and come to terms and accept it. When in doubt, disclose. I would very much want to meet Mahatma Gandhi and asked him, did his dream of independence, true independence, come true? A life full of struggle, full of pain, full of achievement, full of hope, and you achieve it, and then things blow up in your face. How will you feel? So it is for your own interest to work very hard in the beginning, and that's why 70-hour work days, longer work days for you are something that you must look upon as an opportunity for learning and development. Hi, I'm Mohandas Pai, a Bengalorean at heart, a globalist at work who loves technology and people.
How does a leader turn people to believe in a cause?
Well, a leader can turn people to believe in a cause by leading by example. The best example of leadership in this country is Mahatma Gandhi. Till Gandhi came back, I think in 1915, the Indian National Congress was a collection of the elite who met very so often, passed resolutions, and that was it. There was no mass movement. I think Gopal Krishna Gokhale told him, why don't you go around and see the country? Gandhiji spent 3 years going around the country, and whenever he called for any action, he led by example and he was right there in the front. When he was in the front, people followed him, and that's how he built up great leaders. So I think it's important for leaders to lead by example, and if you lead by example, people believe you, people trust in you, and people will follow you.
I'll double click on that a little. What do you think is a leadership practice that is most underused or underrated by leaders today?
I think what is most underrated by leaders today is the point that they are to lead by example and do the things themselves. I'll give a very small example. If you're in a corporate organization and you have your own room as a CEO, you have a separate toilet, it doesn't work. You have to go to the common toilet. You have to go to the common cafeteria. Be seen as one among the troops with no special rights, except maybe you have a bigger room. So I think the common thing that's missed by most people is the benefit of leadership by example. That's what breaks the barrier between the leader and the people who are followers, because they must not feel there's a barrier. They must feel they're part of the same team, they're treated with respect, and the leader will not ask them to do something which he or she will not do himself or herself, and that's a very important thing. Because people want to believe in the cause, and the cause has got to be so large that the leader believes in the cause. And the only way it can happen is by leading by example, and that's why it's very, very underrated by leaders themselves. They should believe that they are the cause, and they have to lead by example to achieve the cause, and through them others can achieve the cause. So I think that facet is an extremely important thing for people.
What would be 3 of the most defining problems around people that Indian entrepreneurs should solve for in this next decade?
Well, I think Indian entrepreneurs should solve for one, to inspire people and communicate to them in very simple terms what they're trying to achieve. You should be able to wake up your people at 3 o'clock in the morning and ask them what is the business strategy, and they should be able to explain to you in 2 sentences. Don't do complicated things, have a very simple tagline, what you want to achieve. So communicate to them, that's important. And the second thing that you have to do is set their targets very high and enthuse them to achieve the targets. And in case they achieve it, just praise them and give them proper incentives so they feel motivated and rewarded. The third thing to do is to make sure that you have a common set of rules which everybody follows. The rules should be the same for everybody. Everybody feels equal. Everybody feels motivated. They believe that merit wins. They believe that performance gets recognized, and they're very clear what they have to do. and the leader has to communicate constantly and carry people with them and have short meetings. And if they do all that, they all feel part of one family, and the output will be tremendously higher.
As somebody who's led people across the globe, what do you think India today is exporting to the world on leadership? Do you think the West, the rest of the world, is learning something from Indian leaders? And what do you think Indian leaders can learn from their counterparts in the world?
Well, I think the West is certainly learning from Indians about leadership. If you look at the top 50 digital companies in the United States, 25-30 have Indian leaders. They're the largest pool of expat leadership in technology that America has seen. And America is not a small country. It has enormous amount of leaders, people from all over the world coming, and the Indians lead some of the largest companies. Why is that? One, they're used to multitasking. They can do multitasking easily, and they do it very well. They can go from problem to problem and solve it. Second, they're all problem solvers. They look at issues and try to come out with 2 or 3 solutions. And the third thing, they work extremely hard. For all of them, there's nothing like a work-life balance where you have to lead the troops to show that you need balance in work. And I think they're very careful that they work extremely hard to achieve numbers, and they're very focused on performance. And the next point I would say is they lead by examples and lead a simple life. Because they're not ostentatious, they don't show that they're very powerful. They have a very collegial, open, transparent communication and business style. They show they're one of their troops, and that works well. And they communicate very openly with people. So I think Indians have a very different leadership style, and I think the entire world should look at what is important for them in their country or their culture and build on that. For example, the West has something called the Protestant work ethic, where the individual is important, individual achievement is important, individual goals are important, and a collection of individuals can work together. In India and in the East, group goals are important. People treat you like one of the family. They stand up for the one who is not a high performer. They try to pull that person up. They don't sack people very easily. They're very loyal to the people. The top leaders sacrifice their compensation and everything. They're not mercenaries like in the United States, and they work as one single family and carry everybody along. That may take more time, but I think that is attuned with their culture, because people believe and people want to be treated very differently in the East and in Asia compared to what people possibly want, right? In the West is much more a mercenary culture. Here the culture is very different. So I think each culture, each country should look within itself to find out what are the good points that keep people together and make sure they're able to follow up on that.
Having run large-scale companies, you've been part of various regulatory bodies. What's your advice to the CEO today in corporate India? How are you measuring them today versus, let's say, a decade ago on their success parameters? What's changed today?
Well, I would measure them today on whether they're able to carry the team along to achieve whatever they set out to achieve, and how they react during adverse conditions. When things go wrong, that's where leadership really comes. When things go wrong, that's where the board of directors and independent directors count. So I think we've got to be cognizant of the fact that leadership comes out best in adversity. When things are going well, everybody is a great leader, everybody pats you on the back. I would judge them by how they react to adverse circumstances, and how they treat the people during normal times, and how do they develop leaders underneath them. These are 3 factors on which we will judge. We found in many big companies, superstar CEOs who stayed on too long, leading, making many good people leave the organization, and the gap between them and the next set of leaders is too wide. So I think it's important that in 10 years of the reign, if you are a good leader, you develop the next set of leaders and hand over the reins to them and go along. Because whenever you become a leader, first 2 years of a learning, next 3 years performance, after 2 more years to demonstrate, and the next 3 years you become complacent and you want to be defensive and protective. And that's where you must getting new leaders, and end of 9 to 10 years you leave and do something else. So I think I would judge them by how they build a succession plan and get people below them.
What do you think as a founder is the most important attribute of that leader to take an idea from a paper to $1 billion company?
Well, we must accept that taking an idea, taking something from an idea to friction requires a team. So you must collect a team of people who have got mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive skills. I think it's important because you must have talent for a 360-degree view, and that's very important. because any firm with a single founder doesn't succeed the way. The risk is too high. So you need 2 or 3 people to work together, but they must work as a team. Second, there must be a very clear leader. A leader must develop consensus in the team on many matters of strategy, and that's very important because everybody must be carried along. But there are times when you don't have a consensus. That's the time when the leader must step in and say, this is the decision, and you make sure that everybody rallies to the flag and carries it out. Even if you disagree, you must make it work, and if you don't, you have no place to be there. I think that's very important that everybody has a voice. You accept everybody can speak and point out, and then you decide collectively. If there's no decision, there is one leader. And the third, you should have a culture of accepting dissent, and that's very important because high performers like to push their ideas. They like to say they know the best, etc., and rightly so because they're high performers. Now they must not be afraid of expressing their views, however unpalatable it is for everybody else. So the leader should make sure that the culture where people can express their views, the culture of dissent, people can easily disagree, but at the end of the day, after the decision is taken, everybody rallies to the flag. I think these are the qualities that are extremely important for leaders.
Is there a common myth or misconception about leadership that you would like to clarify?
Yes, there's common myth about leadership, and people think that being authoritarian, like in the army, will naturally make you a good leader. Such kind of traits work in particular organization like the army or the military or the defense forces, where everybody has to obey the command, right or wrong, and carry it out. You can't have disagreements in the field when you're fighting a battle. You have to go, and even if the wrong decision, you get killed, is okay, because that's the way the organization works. But in the business and in a different environment, there has to be greater freedom. And I would tell everybody who believe that the authoritarian way of working where they say, I'm the boss and everybody has to listen, just doesn't work. Because good people and great talent don't want to be part of such organization. They want to feel respected, they want to feel wanted, they want to feel they have a voice. They don't want to be a cog in the wheel.
What are common behavioral leadership traits that you observe in young founders that you think they should avoid at all costs?
Bravado. Many of them are so cocksure of what they're saying is right and how the world will shape up, and they believe in their own stuff. Second, believing too much in their own achievements, because many of them throw money at a problem and achieve something which is not sustainable, and believing that's the way to go. Third, believing that life is a linear equation, that there's only one way, it keeps going up all the time without the concurrent problems, because if you double in your turnover or double in your growth, you are a very different enterprise from where you were 12 months ago or maybe 24 months ago. So every level of growth, every level of achievement brings its own challenges, and you need to prepare for it by proper planning and putting in place the building block for that. So believing that life is going to be a linear equation. And lastly, believing that technology solves everything, and technology is the only solution. Because we are in the tech world. Yes, technology is the only solution, but it requires people to execute, it requires people to make sure that it works, and it is an input to achieving something greater, and you must understand that very well and not believe just because you create technology and release it, you're going to win. So I think these are some of the things that young founders should not get carried away with, and have some humility.
What do you think has changed for the positive with Indian founders, and what's gotten worse?
Well, they have a lot more confidence, they're a lot more risk takers, they want to try, they're very gung-ho, and they're able to grow fast. I think these are all positive traits. What has gone worse is the fact that they become a bit overconfident, a little bit more arrogant, and a little bit more, let us say, in their own shell. Because however big you become, however high achiever you become, you need to have people in the ecosystem respect you and want to talk to you. So many of them build a shell around them and don't communicate with others, interact with others, even in the same industry, and as a result, they become lone warriors. And it doesn't work when things go wrong, or when you have to get market intelligence. You get market intelligence by interacting, by talking to people, you learn all the while. Because life is long-term learning, right? Life is not a one-shot learning and then you do what you want. I think these are some of the areas where they really have to improve.
Is there a right or an ideal time for a founder to bring in a CEO, a professional CEO? What's your advice to them?
The right time to bring in a professional CEO for a founder is when the CEO feels that they're getting engaged in too much of routine activities and they're not adding value to the firm. Now, what does the founder generally bring to the firm? A vision of what they want to achieve. And that's extremely important, because that is something that the founder has to bring and communicate to people. Second is strategy to make it work. And third, they have to review operations to make the strategy work. When they feel that they're spending too much time on review, that is not their forte, that's not the skill, because that's a day-to-day job, that's the time to bring in a CEO and work with the CEO. And when you bring in a CEO, you must have an agreement with the CEO as to what your role is going to be compared to the CEO. You want somebody to a CEO, the CEO will require autonomy, the CEO will require freedom to work, the CEO will require his or her day in the sun, they want to be recognized. So you must give them all that. That means you must subdue your ego so that people don't think that company is you and you are the company, and the company has other people who deserve credit, and for that you should have a reasonable distance with the operation of the company and let the CEO take over. So there are a lot of things that happen, but the right time is when you feel the burden is becoming too much and you're not enjoying the job, you want to do something else personally, and when the company is too big, it requires a different kind of person to run. A person who can manage expectation, a person who can manage growth, a person who can make the building blocks of growth come together. That's a very different skill from the skill a founder should have.
And what is your advice to boards of these startup companies?
See, the boards of most startups are a failure, because you can't expect the boards to be like the boards of a listed company, where there's a process, there's the objective, there's compliance, etc. A startup is more about risk taking, adventure, about high growth, changes, flexibility, etc. So essentially, you got to look at the areas where your value addition will be high. That is to make sure that there is adequate compliance, the ethical standard does not get shifted, you don't use the company's money for personal resources, and you put in a policy where people feel wanted, and you put in reasonable governance practices which build sustainability through processes. I think that's where you have to have a light touch, and in some areas you got to have a deep touch to make sure that it works. It's a very different culture in a startup compared to a company which is listed, a company where normally you have independent directors and corporate governance practices.
What are you most cautious about when it comes to people?
Well, I'm an optimist for a very important reason. I know that the sun is going to rise in the morning tomorrow and set in the evening, irrespective whether I'm around or not. So you better be optimistic. And if you believe that you are the sun and you're going to make things happen, you're very mistaken. Okay? So I'm optimistic. And I've seen my country grow over the last 30 years. I've been part of a great company that changed India. I've been part of a great industry that changed India. I've been part of a great country that changed the world. So I'm very optimistic, and I think it's important for people to be optimistic, people to believe in the future, because that's how you can be positive and you can contribute. It's also important for people to be cautious and to be grounded very well, to know the reality of what could happen and what cannot happen. Like somebody told me, it's important to build castles in the air, but it's also important to build the foundation to meet the castle.
What's the most common piece of career advice you've heard people give, but you completely disagree with?
Well, people always say, look at your promotion and look at where you go, look at your compensation. That's the way to build your career. You should have a different title every 3 years. You must be promoted regularly. My view is very different. When you set out on your journey of building your career in an enterprise, the first 5 years should be spent on learning, on working, developing your skills and building your expertise. And if you look at reward and compensation and good title during that period and you don't get it, you're going to be disappointed. 2, you must always have a value to the enterprise much more than what they compensate you. That means your value addition is much higher than what they compensate you, so you become more and more valuable, and that gives you the ability to leave and go elsewhere if you wish. Because if you're overpaid for the job, others are not going to hire you. You're overpaid for the job, the burden that you have to take on yourself is going to be extremely high. And the third thing I would disagree with people is that their attitude that career progression is everything in life. Career progression is not everything in life. Career satisfaction is everything in life. Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling contented at what you're doing? Do you have scope for growth? Do you have scope to realize your dream, whatever that dream is? And if career progression doesn't happen, so long as you learn, you develop yourself, I think that's more important in the beginning. And later, of course, you have to make sure that the value that you deliver is higher than whatever you get paid or wanted, so that you're always wanted, because today there is no certainty to a job, there's no certainty to a career. Everything depends on how you perform and how confident you are and the skills that you bring to the table.
How would Mr. Pai run an effective meeting?
Well, I would run an effective meeting in a particular way. I learned it from Vijay Kelkar. Vijay Kelkar was finance secretary. I was part of a group which was supposed to recommend for tax reforms. So he held the meeting in a very interesting way. We were a group of very disparate, highly accomplished, highly opinionated people. He opened up the meeting, let us talk every time, let us fight, let us argue with each other, and never stopped. He gave us adequate time. We spoke what we wanted, discussed everything threadbare. At the end of it, he wrote a report exactly the way he wanted, taking what suggestions he felt were useful. Because all of us had different views. So I learned that if you want to hold a meeting, you must have an agenda and you must talk less. You must allow people to talk more, to discuss, to debate, and your role is to work towards a consensus. And so long as you allow everybody to talk and express their views, people are willing to develop a consensus because they want to be heard. And you must make sure the best opinion, best idea wins. I remember I used to chair the primary markets committee for SEBI for 12 years. And in some meetings, we were going towards one point of view till somebody came with an alternate idea which was so attractive. We shifted our gaze immediately and went to the other side and came out with a very different suggestion from what we were going to do earlier. So I think the key is to make sure that you are the chair, conduct the meeting well and let everybody express their opinion and intervene at the right time, and don't have a monologue, don't talk too much.
How does Mr. Pai give his CXOs feedback?
Well, I think you give feedback by talking to them often and being honest and upfront with them and telling them that you must think about it. I'll give you a feedback. I once had a CEO, I was the chairman of the company, and I once had a CEO, Akshay Bhargava. Akshay is a great guy, city banker, he worked. In one meeting I told him, Akshay, I don't find you aggressive in business. Then he spoke back to me and said, Mohan, you want me to be aggressive in behavior or aggressive in achievement? I said, touche, that is fantastic. So there I learned from him. It's not about style, it's about your achievement finally, because you can be understated and quiet and still be a high achiever. Very often we look at achievement as somebody being aggressive, somebody talking too much and somebody doing many things. We get very impressed. That guy is brilliant, that guy can do it. But the real achievement is when you achieve what you set out to achieve and your performance speaks for itself.
Your proudest moment in your career when you felt that your leadership made a real difference to a crisis?
We spent 3 years working for the NASDAQ listing. That's a long time back in '99. First time an Indian company was getting listed. First time a technology company was getting listed. The whole country was looking at us. And India was not well known globally for technology in 1999. Who had heard of India? They looked at India as a poor country with cows on the road, serpents on the street, etc. And here we go to NASDAQ, list in the biggest tech market in the world, and we get it oversubscribed heavily. We wanted to raise 72 million. We got a book of about 3.6 billion. So that time when the listing happened and the stock price was up on the listing price, that was possibly my proudest moment because that was a particular high. After that, we done many things, but that clearly stands out.
Two things that you value or relate most about the Infosys culture, and two things today, if you were running, you would infuse more of in that culture.
Well, what I liked best was it was an open, collegial, transparent culture where people can speak their mind. That is one. It had a very clear merit-oriented structure where people are recognized for their merit and promoted, and in terms of a crisis, the top people took a hit in their compensation. And what I would do is, I would make sure that that culture of openness, transparency, communication with the top people and the people all around goes on, and nurturing of leadership. I would that's my thing. And the second is, in a crisis, you don't give greater compensation to senior people. You give it to the bottom. You give it to people who are at the bottom, who are starters. You protect them. Because it's important to demonstrate how you care for them in a crisis, because a crisis is when your qualities really stand out.
Do you have a favorite failure of yours, and what has it taught you more about human beings and people?
Well, there is a failure. I mean, I remember in 1994, we had surplus money. I invested in IPOs of the market as applying our cash, surplus cash, and the market bombed, and we had to write off 3 crores. So it was a big amount those days, and we wrote it off. I went before my investors, along with the chairman, and gave a public apology. I said, we did this, we lost money, we apologize, we feel sorry about it, it's a mistake, and we'll never repeat it again, and we'll put in a proper policy to demonstrate that you can continue to trust us. I think that was a moment when transparency and honesty really worked, that restored confidence of people in us. And that is why we used to say, the good news travels by itself. When things are wrong, please stand up and inform everybody and communicate. And that's how you grow trust.
3 must-have traits that you look for in leaders when you hire in your portfolio company.
You have to be a 24/7 person. There is no room for anything else. The room is focused on a business and growth. 2, you should have a ability to get people around you and work as a team and to enthuse them and to inspire them and to lead by example. I think that's very, very good. And 3, very good communication and personal skills. Because a leader has to have people following him. A leader who has no followers is no leader, right? And that means communication is very important. And I think I look for good personal skills, articulation skills that are important. Because you must remember, when we invest as venture capitalists, one of the biggest traits a person must have is the ability to raise the next round. And the people who are able to convince investors about how valuable they are and and they should be articulate, they're the ones who always win. I know several cases where 2 founders started off. One founder was tech heavy, a brilliant guy. Other founder did not have much tech but very articulate. And the first guy who was a techie couldn't raise further rounds of capital because didn't concentrate. And other guy raised it. And by time you woke up, it is all over for you because the business required money. So to me, that ability to communicate and ability to do this is extremely important along with the other 2.
What's the biggest risk you've taken in your career that has paid off? And what's the risks that haven't? What have you learned from it?
Well, the biggest risk that I've taken in my career, but I really don't know. I really don't know. I was running a company, I left the company, I became a consultant, and I joined Infosys because of some other reason, and I don't know whether I've taken a risk. Maybe the biggest risk that I took was stepping down from Infosys in 2011, because that was the time when I was 53 at the peak of my career, and the next place for me was to be CEO or CEO, and people said, oh, he didn't get CEO position, now you have to wait. I said no, I wanted my life back, because I'd worked 17 years, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, travel, never saw my children grow up, never spent time with my family. I said I want my time back, I want my life back. So I just said that I'll just quit. And it paid off because I built an alternate career as a venture capitalist. I worked as the chairman of a company, non-executive, and we did fairly well. So I'm extremely happy because it taught me that however you think that your company and what your career is most important in your life, you must have alternatives which give time for yourself. See, beyond a point, when a company's work consumes you, you have no time for family, no time for friends. It doesn't work. End of the day, you are a human being. You are a social animal. You have family. You have friends. You must invest in the relationship because that relationship is long lasting. And when you work, you join an enterprise, you are building a career, you're doing great work, but it thus consumes everything. At the end of your corporate career, your life will be empty. You got nothing else. You should have something else. You should have a network. You should have other causes. You should have other things to do. You should know many people so that you carry on seamlessly. You may not have the title, the gravitas, or the power of the card, your corporate card, but you have self-esteem, you have respect from society, and you're well networked. I think that's important.
How does a leader square that up with taking tough calls on people and sometimes even having to let them go? How would you do it?
See, what I would do is, I would make sure that I protect everybody to the best of my ability for the longest possible time. And how do I do that? I would call upon senior people to make the greatest sacrifice to cut costs. So I would cut my compensation, I would cut my bonus, and I make other people senior who are paid much, much better do that. And the pain will be the least for people at the bottom. I would carry that on. And then, if things do not improve, I would ask some senior people who are replaceable to take a sabbatical and go on leave for some more time. And after that, if things don't work out and is still prolonged, I would shed people on the agreement that when things improve, I'll take them back. I wouldn't like to shed people just for cutting costs and letting them go, even if they are good performers, because the key is to grow the business, and the business you can always grow at a later point of time. But if in a big fat enterprise which has been there for a long time and which is not growing, where the costs are very high, then you will take drastic action. I mean, that's a very different circumstance compared to other circumstances. So depending upon the circumstance, you would do it. But I would not take a bonus for sacking people. I would not say that by sacking people, increasing profitability, the stock price went up, so I should get a bonus. That would be a little bit more. I would take a bonus when, after cutting costs, letting people go, I find performance going up and the performance is rewarded, then I would claim my due.
As a CEO, would you, if your top best global head of sales or your CHRO got a counter offer from a competition, how would you retain them?
Well, I would explain to them what we have in mind for them. I'll explain to them how they could grow in the enterprise. But I find that the other offer is very compelling and they want to go, I would let them go. Because the important thing is to understand that we have to manage corporate expectation and individual aspirations together. Now, both may not be congruent and both may not meet at the same point. Now, there could be an individual who is very good, who wants to be CEO of an enterprise, and we can't make him CEO. We can't give him the authority, the trapping of a CEO. And if we prevent him from going, him or her from growing, and we step in the way, then they're not going to be happy and that'll be the end of performance. It's better to have a good friend outside than a very disgruntled person inside, right? So you talk to them and manage, and if they feel that is compelling, they have to go. Wish them all the best and remain friends.
As a former CHRO, is it possible today to sell a 70-hour work week to a millennial workforce that places a premium on their work-life balance?
You can implement that by making work exciting and showing people that they can achieve a lot more and learn a lot more in the formative years of their career. Now look, when you talk about this 70-hour work week, what does it mean? It means that you invest in yourself to build the skills required to make sure that you develop the skills that are required to succeed for you for the remainder of your life. It's not that you work 70-hour weeks continuously for 10, 15, 20 years. You do it in the formative 5-6 years of your life where you're able to grow, you're able to develop the skills because you are a rookie, you're not exposed and you don't have the skills and you have to learn the skills. That hard work sets the base to go on. And later when you grow up further, you work hard at the time when hard work is required. At other times you don't do it, and that point of time you're able to make a judgment when is required, when is not required. Because at different cycles of work, your presence is required, your hard work is required. At different cycles is not required. It's not that every day of the month, every month of the year, and every year you have to do that. You don't have to do that, right? That's very different because your ability to take decisions, your ability to understand and decide what to do comes very fast because you know the circumstances, you know the ecosystem, you have the skills to learn and to decide. Okay, that's very different. So I would say you have to work hard, build up your skills in your own interest. Now, you have the perfect choice of not spending more time than what you have to for being paid and working and growing up. That's fine. You want to do that, go ahead. But you should be aware that in a competitive world, when others have worked harder and done much better, they are the ones who are going to get promoted. It's a hard word, right? And promotion comes, only the best of the best get promoted, others don't get promoted. At that point of time, if you don't have the skills and the expertise, don't crib about it. So it is for your own interest to work very hard in the beginning, and that's why 70-hour work days, longer work days for you are something that you must look upon as an opportunity for learning and development. It's up to you. Today, see, what is work-life balance? For the first 30 years of my career, I never understood what was work-life balance because work was my life. Maybe I overdid it. I didn't spend time with my family, my wife, I ignored them, everything, but it was something that I grew up to expect and to work hard, and it made me happy. Yes, I paid a heavy price in terms of family and friends and all that, but I had to balance it somewhere. But I could meet my aspirations and I could prove that I could achieve something and I could develop my skills and my expertise, so I felt happy. Now, when you talk about work-life balance, it is the ability to find the right time for work and the right space where you have life of your own, and that happens as you go along in your life. The work-life balance when you're 50 is very different from the work-life balance when you're 25 or when you're 40, right? When you're 40, you have young children, hopefully, and you have to take time off because they're ill or something. Well, you do it. You have a responsibility for that. That's very important. When you're 50, you become an empty nester. Then your life becomes empty because the children are gone. You're only with your wife. Obviously, you have to work very differently. And when you're 55, 60, you can't be the person who works the longest because you're going to disrupt other people who may not put in the same kind of effort, but you may want to do it at your own. So it all depends upon the, your age, your period of work, your age, and the circumstances in which you live. But the key thing is, how do you balance between your duty and responsibility to others and time for yourself and the work that you do? That's where you have to work out a mean. If the mean is you work 70-hour days, fine. Your mean is that you work only 40-hour days, that is fine. But you can't expect everything to come to you if you're not able to get the skills and the performance that you have to get by putting in greater efforts.
In one sentence, one thing CEOs should do while managing a millennial workforce, one thing CEOs should never do while managing a millennial workforce.
Communicate, communicate, communicate. Second, no patronizing.
What's the most brutal feedback you received on your leadership? Who did it come from and what did they tell you?
Well, it happened when I took over HR as Director HR. I called a meeting of all my HR people and I said, okay, what is the plan now? Then one smart person stood up and said, sir, can I ask you a question? I said, of course. He said, how can I trust you? How can we trust you? I'm the board member, I'm the director. Here the person asking how they can trust me. I said, why do you ask the question? They said, look, so far you are CFO, you have to beat us up, not give us what we want and do everything else, which was very incorrect because I created the stock option plan where they all became billionaires. I made a plan which nobody could tax and they made more money. I gave them variable compensation, higher compensation. I created a set of loans by which they could get loans to buy houses, cars and everything, and did a lot more. But this Johnny's conveniently forgot. Then I told them, look, let me explain to you. Till yesterday as CFO, I looked at you as the net present value of a future stream of revenues when you came to meet me. Now as a person in charge of HR, I look at you as a person who is a human being who deserves my empathy and support. So the answer is very simple. You change along with the role. And the key thing is your troops must trust you to get the best deal for them.
If you could ask someone one question in an interview, and based on only that one question, you will make up your mind whether to hire him or her, what is that thing you would probe them?
Well, I would ask them, what do you want to be in 5 years' time and how do you hope to get there? Because it'll make them think what they want to be 5 years from now. It'll make them think about how they want to achieve that, what are the targets they set for themselves, and based on that, I'll decide whether they are willing to set a high performance target for themselves. They have a clear idea how they're going to, some idea how they're going to achieve it and what it means.
When faced with two equally good candidates, what tilted the scale in the favor of the candidate you chose? What did you use to pick?
Always passion and energy. You see, high energy and passion, which is not style, like I told you earlier, is a necessary attribute for everybody because that comes from within. You have to be self-motivated. If you're motivated by a compensation or a title or a perk, then somebody else owns you. You are a Katputli who can be managed by somebody else. So what is it that drives you? Do you have the passion energy to achieve your dreams? Do you have the passion energy to lead people and take them forward and to do great things? That's what will differentiate people who got almost everything equal between two of them. But that's a very difficult judgment. It requires a fair amount of discussion and judgment on your part. And if you're right, maybe 70%, that's fine.
Last two questions. Data or instinct, what did you bet on more?
I'm a data guy. But let me tell you a story again. Data with judgment. I remember a time when we are not doing well. We have a variable compensation. So we have a formula. We worked out the formula and we went to Murthy to say, this is the formula, this is what to give. He said, no, you're wrong. You should give more. I said, why? Look, the key is in adverse circumstance, what they achieve is not on which you compensate. You compensate on whether in adverse circumstance they've done their best to achieve what they set out to achieve. And if impossible for achievement, but they still did better than what they could have, you must reward them more. So he said, data is very crucial for an input in normal circumstances. In abnormal circumstances, you must apply discretion and judgment on top of data to take the right decision. I think that is beautiful. Because very often, you see, we are always consumed by the need to be fair. We are consumed by the need to demonstrate to everybody how we treat everybody equally. okay? Because you want to earn the respect and this thing. And when you differentiate between people, other people question. They ask you why and this and that. You should be prepared to stand up and explain why. And in adverse circumstances, that becomes all the more important because people will not be given or get everything that they expected. When somebody in adverse circumstances gets much more because you are judging how they work during adverse circumstances, then it's a very different issue.
What created self-doubt for you?
What created self-doubt for me was when I took some decisions and it didn't work out, and I felt that what are the mistakes I'm making. Then what I would do is I sit back and analyze and see why things happen, what are the things that we didn't take into account. I would try to see whether I should improve my decision-making process. That's why when you have to take a tough decisions, it is very important to have your peers and your group of people sit down together, discuss the decision, hear everybody out. There's something called the wisdom of the crowd, right? Somebody may have a different point of view and different achievement, you listen to them because the decision is yours. But the inputs have to come from all sides. And when you take a decision, the inputs that you get could be your own or from a select group of people. So when you have to take a tough decision, it's better to consult a few other people, get their viewpoints. And once you get their viewpoints, somebody may have a very different viewpoint, and then you analyze that and take the right decision. So it's very important to have a consultative approach for decision making when it comes to very crucial decisions and not take it in a hurry.
And last question in this section, what's the one thing that you discovered really late about leading people?
Well, the one thing I discovered is people must love to not respect you, not follow you, but genuinely love you. So that comes because see, you are a hard taskmaster. You push people. You don't consider their feelings. They stick to you because they like you. But do they love you? Do they follow you to the end of the world? And that comes when you demonstrate empathy, when you demonstrate emotion. For example, I worked with Narayan Murthy, and he alone among everybody I reported to asked me about my family, how I'm doing and everything else. Nobody else asked me. It's always about achievement, numbers and everything. So I have a special affection for him. So you got to develop that human touch where they feel that you genuinely care for them. Yes, life is tough. You're held up to high achievements and sometimes you succeed, sometimes don't fail. But they feel that you genuinely like them and you're taking the right decision.
Who do you think influenced your early thought process on leadership? And what do you think is that one lesson that has stayed with you through the decades?
Well, I think there are two people who influenced me in leadership. Mahatma Gandhi. I read his autobiography. I mean, he was a frail human being, always in doubt, discovering himself. He made no pretext to being a master. He made no pretext to knowing everything. His life was one of continuous discovery. He was quixotic, a maverick in many ways. He had very strange ideas. But at the end of the day, by his qualities of heart and mind, he was able to lead people, and the greatest mass of people ever in human history. So some of the things that he did, I could take a half an hour chapter on his leadership traits. I would, that's one. And then Narayan Murthy in business, because I worked with him and I saw him at close quarters. He was a man of great courage because courage is required at the right time when you take business decisions, when there's a fork in the road. And I think he inspired me because I worked with him a long time. These are the two people who inspired me in my career on leadership.
2 to 3 leaders that you've groomed under your tutelage that you're most proud of today?
One is Amitabh Chaudhary. I worked with him for some time and I don't know whether I groomed him. He's now CEO of Axis Bank. Right? Other was Bala, my colleague in this thing. I don't know whether I groomed him. I don't think I groomed him, but he became CEO for Infosys. Did very well. These are two people, and there are many others who achieved what they set out to achieve. There are many people who became CEOs of companies and others.
What are 1 to 2 mistakes from your own career that you would tell your kids to avoid at all cost?
Well, I would tell them that you must develop a slightly dispassionate distance between your role and the work, so that anything that happens, you don't take it personally. I was not able to do that in the formative years of my career. Everything became personal. So not that it hurt my decision making or anything, but it hurt me personally when somebody made some strange remarks or anything about the work we're doing and everything else. You tend to take it personally. So in politics, you see politicians getting abused regularly. they take it in the stride because the thing is the occupational hazard, right? So you got to grow to have a thick skin if you really want to grow a good enterprise, because you should be able to take criticism, however weak and strong, same stride. So I think it's very important, and that's what you learn as you grow up. Look, it's all about growing up in maturity. When you're young and passionate and energetic and you want to achieve and you believe what you're doing is right and you're better than everybody, somebody criticizes you and you take it very personally. Over time you tend to take the thing, laugh it off, ignore it, or take it in a stride and imbibe in your leadership style. And that's very important to do, because then you don't get hurt emotionally.
One lesson you've learned, the most valuable lesson from your former Infosys colleagues Narayan Murthy and Nandan Nilegani?
Well, we learned that however good things that you achieve in life, there are times when there will be failures. You have to accept the failures with equanimity and bear with it and analyze and come to terms and accept it. There have been a few failures. I think you have to accept it and work on it and try to improve upon it, because when you are on a high growing path and there is success and everything happening, you tend to believe too much in yourself and tend to believe good times are going to last forever. I remember a time in 2003, I think in April, when he gave a guidance for about 30% growth as against 100% the previous year. The market fell 40%. And we are shocked because the market fell 40% in two days. Not because the stock fell, because people stopped talking to us. We thought, had they lost their trust in us? And after that, a few days later, many people called me up and said, how are things? Will you do what you said? He said, yes. And they bought the stock and the price doubled in 6 months. Not because the price doubled, but the feeling that they were all talking with you and, coming back to you. Suddenly, they're cold shouldering you. I mean, what's happened? I mean, are we such great failures? Because that's where you learn that life is not a linear equation, a one-way street where everything keeps going up and up and up and up. There are going to be a lot of bumps on the road.
Leadership lessons you've kind of made post-it notes on from your experience of Byju's.
See, Byju is an extraordinary entrepreneur, but he had some very clear drawbacks. One, he was not communicative with his team. I think it's very important to communicate with his team. And second, he was not open and transparent and collegial in his dealing, kept too many things to himself. And he didn't reach out to people and listen to people to understand how to solve problems. And third, he never developed a leadership team under him. And even in a crisis, he didn't reach out to resolve crises, but thought he had the answers all the time. So this is a function of a person who has achieved a lot of success very early in life without going through the pain of achieving those success, and believes that success is your right. So it happens to people. I've seen it in many other circumstances, especially where there has been great success very early.
Who in business India is inspiring you right now and why?
Mukesh Ambani. Look, Mukesh is a brilliant man, an extraordinary individual. He has a very high vision. He's extremely well read, extremely articulate in what he has read. His attention to detail is unbelievable. Attention to detail, attention to understanding. And he has got a infinite capacity for growth and to take risk. And he's able to create industries, turn things around, because he believes and has the ability to achieve excellence and achieve what he wants to achieve. And he believes that he has the financial capacity to do that. That is very extraordinary. I don't think there's anybody in India with that kind of an attitude except maybe Adani. Well, people may abuse Adani, people may criticize Adani, but look at what he has done. In the last 5 years, unbelievable achievement. Now you want to abuse somebody, you want to say has done, go do something better than them. All the people you abuse are people who are non-performers, who have not done anything useful. Say, oh, how can he do this? He has done this, he has done this, he has done this. Man, you go achieve. You have to respect people who are high achievers, who achieve so much. And if you think they've done something wrong, tell them what is wrong. I mean, you can't go throwing mud hoping some of it sticks. In this country, there are some people who have built giant conglomerates. Respect them for what they did. Have they done wrong? Maybe. They crossed the rules a little bit, something here and there, which could be possible for anybody, but they achieved something. And don't go on criticizing them and pouring cold water on them, right? You don't like them, it's fine. But be honest about the scale of their achievements. And it's very tough achieving. Look at Sunil Bhati Mittal. Look at Sunil Bhati Mittal. I mean, he was nearly destroyed by Jio. And see how he came back at the most profitable telecom company. Look at Chandra of TCS, how he turned around the Tata Group. I mean, he had that old steel mill still, they're turning it around. and Tata Motors was down the dump, they paid back all the debts. The man has turned it around. His dispatch energy, his ability to invest, his clarity of thought, which he demonstrated in TCS. Now he has done that. These are all people with high achievements. I mean, Vedanta, the man has taken such great risk. Will he pull it off? He's pulled it off so far. Now, are they people to admire or to respect? In a way, yes, on the scale of the achievement. Have they done it the way you would have done? Maybe not. But then everybody has their own style. And unless you are in their you are in their steps, you will not understand under what circumstances they took what decision. You can always sit outside and judge people. But look at the scale of achievements. The scale of achievements is unbelievable. Look at our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The scale of his achievement is mind-boggling. How did one man do something in 10 years which you couldn't do in 60 years? Make sure that every Indian has the necessities of life. He executed it, achieved that, right? Can you still go on criticizing him and abusing him? No. You have to accept what people have done and respect them for the achievement. You may disagree with them, that's fine. But why disrespect them? So look at the scale of the achievement and you do it. I think that's important.
If you were in this seat and had an option to put somebody there, who are you itching to meet across any field in history? And what are you wanting to ask them? What would you want to seek?
No, I would very much want to would have met Mahatma Gandhi and asked him, did his dream of independence, true independence, come true? I know the answer, what he would have said, but I still want to ask him on his face. Because a life full of struggle, full of pain, full of achievement, full of hope, full of discussion, full of caring people, and you achieve it, and then things blow up in your face. How will you feel? It's a very poignant moment when your whole life is devoted to a cause, and your whole life is there, and you know that you're coming to the end of your life. There's no second chance for you.
What's the end goal or the chase for you that inspires you to be at work every day?
To see my country become better and better, to make sure all our children can realize their dream. Honestly, I want India to be very good, a great country where every child can achieve his or her dream, where there's very good governance, everybody had their basic needs, and everybody has an equal opportunity to grow. Exactly what a Rama Raja would be, and I really mean it. I love my country. I believe I'm patriotic and nationalist. I want India to come forward, and India coming forward and achieving a lot of things is the most important thing for me in my life. I've done very well in all facets, but for me, India always comes first, and I think it's very important, because if India does well, I as an Indian will be respected. I cannot be respected more than my country. Nobody. It's not possible unless you are a genius. So to me, my country doing well, my people not suffering from want, every child having the ability to realize his or her dreams, because the society will invest in the child. No child left behind. These are important things. Because like Manish Sabharwal keeps telling me, life is an Ovarian lottery. You're born to a particular family. You're born to a very poor family in the street. What hope is there for you? And we don't choose our birth. We are born in a particular family contest. We are born in a good family. We get everything that we want and all the odds are in your favor. You're born in a very poor family. You got nothing and you have to struggle. And you may succeed, you may not succeed. So you got to be grateful that you are born in decent families. You got everything. You got a good education at public cost. You got everything. So when you achieve something, you got to give it back. And the way to give it back is to help make society better, so that everybody in that society has a good ability to do well for himself or herself and rejoice in their success. You cannot succeed by pulling down others. You can't succeed by destroying the lives of others. That is not the kind of success that anybody should rejoice.
Do you think that CEOs and companies in India should take a more prominent stand?
I think CEOs and all should take a more prominent stand on areas where their interests lie. But there's a problem. You see, a CEO is running a business enterprise. They're always associated with the business. The business depends on them. So they must be very careful what they speak, what they talk in public. They must be very careful to differentiate between their private views and what they speak as CEO, because they're speaking as the CEO. Now, after I left Infosys, I'm not anywhere. So I can speak my mind. I like to express myself. I think I'm a citizen of this country who has the right to express himself or herself. I speak my mind without fear on many issues which are unpalatable to others, which are not popular, which are contentious. I speak and express my opinion, and I think all of us should express our opinion. But CEOs have to be very careful, because their role is very different. They're not individual running a business, they represent the business, so people can question them, why are you doing it? If they wade into a very controversial area, it could damage the enterprise brand. So because their views could be very strong compared to somebody else, which could be personal, and their views could be not palatable to a great number of people, it doesn't matter, because it's their view. For me, it doesn't matter because my views, but I cannot do it as the CEO of a company.
We're just going to shoot one word, one sentence answers. Here we go. The hardest thing about being a CEO is dash.
Hardest thing about being a CEO is that you're alone.
One thing you've learned always to do as a leader.
Lead by example.
One thing you've learned leaders should never do.
Be arrogant.
When in doubt, Mohandas Pai dash.
When in doubt, I'll always place the case before everybody.
The most aha moment of your career.
NASDAQ listing.
A job you secretly wanted but didn't get.
It's as if that I was destined to do all the things, and I was lucky that things fell in place.
One book you recommend every leader must read.
Well, one book is, My Experiments with Truth of Mahatma Gandhi.
A business buzzword you dislike hearing in meetings.
Strategy. Everything is strategic in business. Even going to the toilet is strategic.
3 people on your list of most upcoming startup founders to watch out for.
Well, I think the 3 people who are to watch out for, I would say that Kunal Shah of Incred, and I think is doing a good job. And my 2 investees in Licious, Abhay and Vivek, I think they've done a great job so far, and I think they really have to take it up to the next level. And the 3rd person in a very extremely tough area is Anand, who is the CEO and founder of Bugworks, because he is doing something which nobody has done before, finding a solution for superbugs.
One line to people who are afraid of AI.
Believe in yourself.
One business leader who you wish you had as your teacher in school.
Murthy. See, my world is a very small world.
One thing you wish people knew more about you.
That I'm a good guy, not a tough fellow, not necessarily a tough fellow always.
One founder you would like to be a co-founder with today.
Elon Musk.
If you could put any 2 people and construct a team from any industry, any place, who would it be?
Elon Musk.
Second?
Nandan Nilekani.
A secret vice no one knows about you.
Food. I don't know. People know about that. I really don't know.
Morning person or night owl?
I don't like very early mornings. I get up reasonable time. So,
first thing you do in the morning, last thing you do at night?
Well, the first thing I do in the morning is look at my iPhone to find out any messages. The last thing I knew is to turn off my iPad.
One thing that's been on your to-do list for the longest time?
Well, I want to visit Jerusalem.
One moment from your life you'd love to relive again?
The birth of my first son.
You're most grateful for in your life, dash?
I'm grateful to God.
If you were down to your last crore, where would you invest it?
Honestly, I would invest in an index fund.
The one thing that you and Mr. Murthy argued the most about?
Well, what did we argue the most about? India's future.
Baiju Ravindran in one word.
Dynamic.
Mr. Murthy in one word.
Visionary.
Crypto or climate tech?
Big fluff.
Your favorite workday time waster?
Answering my WhatsApp message.
Your biggest investing error?
It could be investment or divestment, selling my Infosys stock very early.
One thing you dislike hearing in an investing pitch?
Illusions of grandeur.
Your favorite Bangalorean slang?
Kalpa adjust mari.
One non-existent job you wish existed today?
The philosopher for a country.
If you had a gigantic billboard and could put out a message to millions of Indians, what would it say in one sentence?
I would say be optimistic about your future. I want to thank Qunba for meeting people, finding out how they work with people, how they build relationship, how they work with people to build enterprises, what are the life lessons, etc. Because understanding what has worked to build successful enterprises, what has worked for leadership, what has worked for people to be leaders is extremely important for people to learn, so their journey could be smoother and faster, and they don't have to learn everything themselves. They don't have to make the same mistakes, they can make new mistakes. So I think it's a fantastic work that you're doing. Keep going, and I do hope that you'll send me a copy of all the learnings that you had. I'll be very happy to learn that and ingest it in my work too. Okay. All set? Ready to roll?